Right, here we go. This I scribbled this in the car, so it's I have to try and decipher.
While you were driving?
Whilst I was driving at high speed, illegally down a motorway, the wrong way. Anyway, so let's see if I can decipher it. This man lurches around the country seeking an answer to his technique, which is lunge, back off, lunge, back off. He may never find an answer, yet we may endeavour to seek it out. He is, of course, Nik Hodges.
Welcome to
Thank you very much.
Our podcast.
Did that make any sense to you?
Not really. I suppose for the uninitiated, we should explain that you, of course, were the driving force, the drumming force behind Chaz and Dave, and Chaz being your father, and
the driving force as well. Actually,
I did drive.
Driving the van.
Well, luckily, it wasn't the van; it was the band car. It was the band car, which
I had an image of you in a dirty old transit van.
And I played it up because I thought,
Well, what sort of car was the Chaz and Dave tour car?
It's the car that's out there that I still drive around now. So it was a nice Mercedes
sedan.
Yeah. With
and did you have both Chaz and Dave in it at the same time?
Absolutely. We had a rotor system, so Dave would drive to the show. I would drive from the show.
Did Dave enjoy driving?
He didn't so much love driving, he hated not driving.
So he panicked if you were in charge, is that what
he was very, very panicky, yeah.
I know that feeling. I don't like to be driven anywhere.
Do you like to do you grapple the wheel from people when they're driving sometimes?
Yeah, from taxi drivers.
Yes, and climb onto their lap and insist that you drive?
Yeah. I can't imagine you being a passenger, really. Somehow.
I don't like it when people suddenly go a bit balmy with their driving. But I imagine Nick's a very sensible driver, so Chaz and Dave would have been perfectly unpanicked. Did they have any unusual sort of request? I mean, did they have anything in their routine that perhaps, looking back on it, was eccentric or unusual? Do you think in their travelling to the shows?
I don't think it was so much eccentric, but I think I would probably call it traditionalist. So my dad would be harking back to his reference point, which was the M1 and the A1 in the early 60s. And of course, that would mean stopping at the Blue Boar.
The Watford Gap.
The Watford Gap, yeah. And even then, I'd say to him, Dad, it's a very different place now than what it was in
like
the
so
early
many
60s.
Things. Yeah, it's no longer that groovy place.
No,
right.
It's not. And you're probably not going to get anything vaguely pleasant to eat. I don't know if you ever could there, but you certainly, it wasn't really what he had in mind anymore. But he would always point out this one sign on the M1 which say motorways merge, and he was like, yeah, that is the signal that the Blue Boar is coming up. And that sign is still there.
I mean, this is, in Joyride, we discuss journeys and travelling, but people forget some of the most travelled people in the world are musicians, because the people don't come to them, they've got to go to the people to do the gig.
Yeah.
Of course, did you know that Jimi Hendrix was so impressed, heard about all the people who would go to the Blue Boar after a gig, that he thought it was a fantastic nightclub? He said, how do I get a membership at a Blue Boar? You just drive up there and go there. That's right, exactly.
We were there once, we were on tour, which didn't happen very often, and Bob is a massive fan of hard-boiled eggs. And there was a hard-boiled egg on display, but it would only come with the salad, which he didn't want.
Right.
And they said, we'll only give it to you with the salad. But the lure of the hard-boiled egg was so much that he nicked it and put down a couple of quid, which was highly illegal. And he was almost arrested. They said, but you've now handled it, so you can have it.
It has to be said that years ago, it was run by delightful middle-aged ladies, basically, who would say, would you like an egg, or the sausages are nice today, and things like that. And I think that's probably gone. But the other thing worth bearing in mind, and this is true of most motorway services, here's my big tip: if you look at you can now, I used to carry, as many of us do, ordnance surveys with me everywhere I went, but nowadays, of course, you can do it on Google Maps. Yep. But if you
Did you lay it out on the bonnet of your car and scratch the back of your head, though?
All the time, that's right, in a lay-by with a thermos and a stool. But now you can just look at your phone, which I did do because I did it the other way around. I went on a canalling holiday, and I had a baby with us. A baby had just been born, and we had
not
run
yours.
out. Yes, and not on the boat, water baby, but it had run out of milk. And I looked and realised I was very close to the Watford Gap services. So you just got off the canal boat, past a delightful sort of canal side inn, hopped over a fence, and there you are in the back of the Watford Gap services, like everything's lorries flying past and all that, get the milk and then climb back again. But actually, if you do it in reverse, if you stop in the Watford Gap, you can then climb over the fence and you can have your cheese and pickle sandwich with the ancient bargees overlooking the canal. So,
I know where you are. That's very good. I always imagined Chaz and Dave and yourself to travel around the country in maybe a rag and bone man's cart with pneumatic tyres.
I would have loved that actually. That would have been great, but we'd have had to set out
It
pretty
would have been a long old trip, wouldn't it?
And were you keen tourists in your tenure with the band? Was it with Chaz and Dave? Were they stop and look at the sights of the kingdom?
Yeah, I remember checking out Woodhenge at one point, because Dave, the other thing that Dave really loves as much as his painting is wood carving. He would always it would be Dave would look out for something, and my dad would be like, well, we got a bit of time to kill, we're in Tewkesbury, or we're in this, that and the other. So yeah, it would be, let's see what's around.
And of course your father was, because he wrote a book on gardening.
Yep.
Keen gardener. Did they go and look at gardens? I like the idea of Chaz and Dave in the garden.
He wasn't really one for, he had his own allotments, and that was kind of it. When he was not on his own allotments, he'd be like, no, I'm going to do something else.
And someone else's.
Yeah. I'm not. I'm not in gardening mode at the moment. I want to do something that I can't do when I'm at home. So it was. He would be looking at anything that could kind of, kill the time.
Have you carried on the horticultural side of things?
I haven't. No, I haven't so much. My mum kept his allotment going for like a sort of year and a half after he went, and then it was getting a bit too much for her, so she kind of let it go.
What's the best gardening tip that he's imparted?
It was probably the beer trap for slugs.
Oh, how does that work? Because we all have problems with slugs, don't we?
Yeah.
And
an excess of beer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so how does that work then? You get the...
Well, it was you get like obviously a fairly shallow tray. And this was the thing is, I think on Gardener's Question Time once, someone mentioned it, and they said it has to be a particular type of real ale, like very he narrowed it right then, which was actually not true according to my dad. It was like, no,
it was just the company he worked for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
It's like you could stick anything in there, like Sainsbury's own brand Norseman lager or whatever. You just it will work. So you fill your shallow tray with beer, and it attracts the slugs, and they drink it and get drunk, and it kind of deals with them.
Because they like the smell of the beer.
Yeah.
Head towards that and avoid your tomato plants.
In theory.
And then they go and drink your beer and drink themselves to death.
Kind of, yeah.
I was in...
It's not a bad... I'd like to think it's not a bad way to go.
You can think of worse ways. It's better, nicer than putting down salt or poison, I suppose.
Exactly.
Or maybe you could... I was going to say, you could maybe cook the slugs after they'd festered in there for a bit, but probably not. I was in a perfume shop in the Lake District, and the wasps were attracted by the smell of the flowers, and then they'd drink the perfume, which had alcohol in it, and get really leery and like fly around just stinging people willy-nilly.
So it has the same effect on wasps as well.
Well, they just got like you can imagine a wasp's going to be a bit brazen. It's like a football over a wasp, isn't it? And, but when it stung people willy-nilly, the alcohol diluted the sting.
So it didn't hurt.
So, well, it did hurt, but not as much. But I was covered in the stings. Anyway, the woman in the perfume shop told me this.
Were you buying perfume for yourself? Or
of course.
Yes.
What I have been working on, as we're on a motoring theme, is my dad's old World War II Jeep.
Oh, really?
Yeah, an old 1943 Willys MB. And which was actually registered the month that my dad was born, so it was exactly the same age as my dad, December 1943. So it saw a bit of action. It got shot at quite a few times in the war.
Has it got bullet holes in it?
It's got quite a few dents that look suspicious. Let's put it that way.
Do you know where it was in the war?
Don't know exactly where it was. All we do know is that after the war, it was sold with a job lot of other surviving Jeeps to the Greek army. So it's got a story to tell, yeah. So
have you prized it out of it yet? I mean, you said it's got a bullet. Did you say it's got bullet holes?
It's got a lot. It's got little dents in it.
It's been shot at.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
definitely,
a whole area of collecting of vehicles that is a specialised subject, isn't it? The military vehicles.
Yeah.
So this is an American World War II Jeep.
Yep. My dad, when he bought it when I was a kid, and it came all completely, sort of resprayed, and it had the axe and the shovel on the side, and it had the whole thing, and they kind of disappeared down the years, the axe and the shovel. And it had the mounting for the machine gun at the back, so you could put it on there. But my dad decided fairly early on that he's not going to put it in for show. He's not going to get into that whole kind of collector's military reenactment type thing, and so he just used it as a workhorse to sort of drag tractors out of ditches around the village and things like that.
I went to I think it was the War and Peace show in Kent. But it was really great because, first of all, they had a bit of like sort of ground where there was great big undulating bits, and people with historic huge tanks and things were sort of looked really dangerous, was teetering over the edge of these great inclines and then sort of almost falling down them. I did notice a lot of people seemed to be generals, American generals. There weren't so many just private GIs. I quite like that. But then you'd look round and there would be a load of people from the Roman legion sort of marching past you, or a few Napoleons. You know, it was really it was a super day out.
Oh, I love that. I go regularly.
Bit of everything. I like the idea. I like the idea of that.
You ever see an old woman weaving an ancient bit of tapestry or something in a tent, whilst her husband's parading around looking like a Viking?
Yeah, well, they had Vikings, and they had people from the Russian Revolution, the Tsar's Guard, and then they have a reenactment with the peasants, sort of. It was really interesting.
When I was there, I saw a fella who was sitting under a tree making clogs by hand with leather and wood. Yeah. So I went and I said, "Can I get a pair?" And he said, "Yeah." And he drew around my foot on a piece of paper, on newspaper, and said, "That's the size of your shoe. I'll go off and start making it, and then I'll send it through the post for you to have a look at." And he did, and I got the clogs. Wow. Deeply uncomfortable, but they look fantastic.
Deeply uncomfortable, extremely expensive.
Probably, yeah. It was a while, but yeah. But have you ever been in a tank?
No. I'm not really.
Very enclosed.
Claustrophobia, untold.
You'd have to be very brave to be in a tank.
Have you been in one?
I have. I certainly wouldn't want to be in one with people sort of firing stuff at you.
No.
Have you fired one?
No.
Do you like firing guns?
Well, I don't know. It depends.
Take it or leave it.
Really, not that bothered.
It depends who I'm firing them at. You know.
Ever since the dawn of time, man and woman have dreamt of destroying the moon. And that's I'd love to have a crack at that.
Have you tried shooting at the moon?
Well, you got to have a goal, haven't you, Jim?
Yeah, I fired an air rifle off. Nothing happened.
And what about other forms of transport? Was your father a keen traveller? Generally, I mean, did he like to sort of travel around and see the world?
Only as part of touring. If there was a gig at the end of the journey, he would love the whole process. Yeah. And it would be the road and everything on the road would be, and this became a running joke, would be, inverted commas, rock and roll, everything. So if we broke down, well, it's rock and roll. And, have to change a tyre, it's rock and roll. Everything about it. But as long as there was the gig at the end of the road, then he would travel anywhere, like Australia, New Zealand, gig at the end, he would do it. But travel for its own ends, he wasn't really into that.
So the breaking down's rock and roll?
Yeah, everything.
How about a cheese sandwich? Is that rock and roll?
Yeah, we had this discussion in A Little Chef, actually. So this is the same vibe as your Blue Boar, which was rock and roll.
But only if you're on tour. If you're just being a civilian going on your holidays, that's not rock and roll then, no. It's quite an important differentiation. Yeah. Of course, I was ejected and had the police called on me in A Little Chef in I think it must have been about 1980 or something, and Squeeze had played a New Year's Eve show for something on our way back, and we stopped and everybody had ordered their food, and I was looking at the menu and they had fish finger sandwiches. I thought, that looks nice, really fancy that fish finger sandwich. So I said, I'll have a fish finger. They said, that's on the children's menu. I said, well, never mind, I'll pay a bit extra, just could I have that? So they said, well, ask. So they go back, and then this bloke comes out from behind the thing, I don't know, some little chef manager. He says, right, who's making trouble here?
Was this the Little Chef?
Yes, yeah, exactly. I said, well, hold on, it's not, I'm not making, exactly, this is the Little Chef. I said, my dear little sir, I'm not trying to cause trouble, I was just inquiring if it was a fish finger sandwich. I see it's on the menu. He said, well, it's on a children's menu, really cross. I said, well, I'm sorry about that, but I'd quite like it. He said, it's on the children's menu.
He asked to see ID, see if you're young enough.
I said, I'm a big child. He said, I can see that. I said, look, I tell you what, I don't want to cause any trouble. I'll give like an extra, I've just got it in my mind now, I'll give you an extra $5 to give us a fish finger sandwich. Do what? How dare you? Get out of here. I said, I'll give you a tenner. And then there's like quite a few people in the restaurant. I said, I'm offering £10 for a fish finger sandwich. What do you say to that? He said, I'm calling the police. I said, and what are you going to tell him?
On
You've
what
got
charge?
a bloke in here offering 10 quid for a fish finger sandwich.
It's demanding children's food.
I seen trouble makers like you
trying to
before.
drive the prices up.
Get
fish
out.
finger
Anyway,
sandwiches.
So I had to leave. But then after that, it then changed. And I think because of that incident,
I think so. That was
it changed. And Little Chef then put them on the adult menu, and that was one of the best things you could get in there.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're even going anymore, are they? The
Little Chefs.
You've got the odd one hanging on, I think.
Oh, I do hope so.
Like a sort of independent, I
Is there?
suppose. Yeah,
You'd
there is
know
the odd
about
one.
this, though, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's on the Norfolk Road. I'm so rubbish with my A road names. A140, I don't know.
Let's just say it's on the way to
It's on the way to
Lowestoft.
Norfolk.
Yeah,
Here you go.
yeah.
On the way to Lowestoft.
Yeah,
And that was the last
my
one
friend
standing.
Dorian Crook was in a Little Chef, and he's a vegetarian. He said, "Can I have the sausage, egg, and chips and beans without the sausages?" And they said, "No, under no circumstances will this ever happen." So, like a combination of your story and his.
Yeah, exactly. I think I think
Oh.
their new management came in, but I went into the one in, I think it must have been in the West Country on the A40, and I said, I think I'll have a fried egg on toast. They said, they haven't come in yet. I said, what do you mean they've come in? Well, they come in an envelope, the eggs. An envelope?
Already cooked and flattened.
Yeah, exactly. They haven't arrived yet. Oh, thanks.
Jiffy bags.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd
that
like
was-
to know more about this eggs in an envelope.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it was an omelette in an envelope you got. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
a
that
flattened-
would-
yeah,
that
actually, you
would
could
work.
send an omelette through the post, couldn't you?
You could do.
Eating on the road is a whole thing, isn't it? Which we haven't really addressed.
Yeah.
Because it used to be that you had the individual cafes run by mum and dad and making their own special pies and signature dishes.
Yep.
But that slowly went, and the corporate world's taken its place, isn't it?
What would you, when you go into let's say a lorry cafe,
Yeah.
what are you hoping to get?
I think just something that's edible, really. I think, we haven't got
You're
high
not bothered.
hopes. I haven't got, high standards.
Good idea. Keep the expectations low.
Keep them low.
I mean, I
Keep
know,
'em low.
I know what you're dreaming of, Jim. Is this?
Oh,
You
it's
go
a
into-
Vesta curry.
yeah, you're dreaming of.
That should be attainable, I would have thought.
But you're dreaming of going into a transport cafe, there being a jukebox,
Yeah.
a counter with doilies and tins of pop behind
Yes.
it, and a
Warm pop.
yes, warm pop,
Warm pop.
a big urn with
Yeah.
tea, which
Yeah.
is quite an important thing, a glass case with rolls in it with doilies underneath them,
Yeah.
ready
Now
to
you're
go,
talking.
and maybe some teddy boys having a fight.
Yeah. Well, there is a place
Yeah.
not far off that near me, and it's a stop for rally cars on the way around Europe, and a lot of lorries.
There is one actually on the A1, and it's because this is quite
Yeah.
a good tip, is because there's the McDonald's and all the standard stuff.
Yeah.
But then there's this thing, and it's where the lorry drivers go. You
yeah.
can have a shower, but they have in there their own pies.
Yep.
And it is really good, and it's a big place. And she's been doing it with the husband for years. He's sadly passed away, but she's kept going. So.
I've been in there. And that
Treasure
was,
moment.
Where's this one?
it's
yeah.
Is
on,
it Markham Moor?
it's on the A1, and it's just between. I think it is. It's like sort of Peterborough way. It's
Just
not
beyond
Yeah,
Peterborough,
it's
yeah.
just beyond Peterborough.
Markham Moor. You can imagine a highwayman being hung there.
Yeah,
And Markham
sounds
Moor.
like it. Battle of Markham Moor. Yeah. We wanted to get Dave to record his own set of messages for SatNav because when and he won't mind me saying this, when he's driving, he's got quite a few things to say about other motorists that are on the road. His language is fairly
Fruity.
industrial.
But I think it would
And
be.
it'd make a good little. We could do a series of.
What sort of expressions does he have?
Well, for example, the most common one is if he's overtaking a lorry on the motorway, and his biggest hatred is when the lorry starts to pull out as he's pulling out. So his catchphrase would be "Stay there, you see."
Yeah.
Which
Say that now,
I'm
you
not going
see.
to. I'm not going
Now
to
see here.
Yeah, not that. And that would be his thing.
And he thought just by talking to them like that, telepathy and willpower,
Yeah.
the lorry would pull back in.
Yeah.
I was using my sat nav recently around Cambridge.
Yeah.
And it took me off because it hadn't caught up with itself, the sat nav, and so I was it kept it was going mad because I thought I was driving through some fields.
Yeah.
About turn.
Yeah.
That's whatever it is. Is it about turn?
Yes,
Yeah.
I don't like his tone of the sat nav at all. Some of them are horrid tone.
I like it
Bossy.
if you go up where I live,
Yeah.
where our house is, it's an unmade dead end road, and it sends it berserk. Because if you put in somewhere, it goes, make a U-turn if possible, make a U-turn, make a U-turn if possible. Going absolutely mad, freaking out.
Yeah.
I think it was when you had Rob Brydon in. You were talking about celebrity parking. I was talking to Dave about it. We could have a show with Dave just in the car. We could call it "Stay There, You."
Yes.
his phrase. And just him driving around with his phrases, his style of driving, just like a kind of fly on the wall thing or a fly in the passenger seat, and very cheap to make, you know, nice content.
I like the idea of that. I always thought it would be nice to have my sat-nav voice that I get change as I went from area to area.
That's a great idea.
So, for instance, if I was travelling through East London, I would like to have Dave's voice guiding me through. In Birmingham, I might want one of the Castle Crossroads and so forth. And
when you get down to Cornwall, turn right here, my lover.
Exactly, that's right. I think it'd be really useful. And
it's a study of where accents change regionally.
Yes.
At what point? What is the cusp point where that accent will be? Birmingham's a great example, because with Birmingham it's like you've almost got this sort of enclave of this accent, and you go not too far out and it goes totally different.
That's right.
What I've thought was quite strange is if you like Carlisle and Darlington, where I grew up, are really similar, but they're on different sides of the country. You've got the Pennines in between, putting a barrier up there.
But you say similar, but they don't have similar voices though, do they?
What a similar accent. It really is quite.
Think?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I've known people from Carlisle, and I say, where did you grow up? And then they say Carlisle. I thought it sounded like Darlington to me.
I never really knew what.
Not massively, but there is a connection.
I could definitely hear the Cumbrian Drug is different to the standard Darlington accent, I think.
When you get to the home counties, again, it all kind of merges into one. So would your sat-nav have like traditional Hertfordshire accent? Or everyone talks now?
No, I would like to. That's right, there has merged. For instance, you had a North Kent voice, you had an East End voice, which would have been from sort of Stepney and so forth, which was different as soon as you got a bit further out. You know, all those voices were very different, weren't they? You know, but that's all merged into one now. But I think the sat-nav can keep this alive.
I think so. I think
the old Kentish accent was very OR.
Yeah.
And then, but all the Cockneys came down on their up picking holidays, and then they ended up staying there. So it's now got an old sort of 30s East End accent.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's interesting. But yeah, that sat-nav thing's got to be done, definitely. And I'll talk to Dave about supplying the London side of it.
If he could, that's right. He could have it. He could have it. I wouldn't really want it in rhyming slang, though. That would get a bit annoying, wouldn't it?
No,
you could do, for the specialists.
You wouldn't know where you were going.
No.
You know,
would he need to regulate his language? Would
no,
he need
I would
just you know.
You get +18 versions.
Yeah, so you could get angry and a bit. Yeah.
Or maybe also get a loudspeaker on the top of your car, which would actually alert everyone else to all the course language.
Yeah.
Yes.
From within.
This is my.
I always thought it'd be quite good because people do get when they get the road rage. Let me just get out of my way, you arsehole.
Yeah.
You would not do that if you were walking along Oxford Street to people. It's because you're in the car, the safety of your car, and your little box.
Well, you do, don't you? I've seen you do that.
I think
who do you think you are?
Yeah.
All the way along. And here's a message from our sponsors. Jools, I've just opened a theatre.
Are you having me on?
Well, you'll have to audition like everyone else, but I'm not promising anything.
Thank you, but what's the name of this theatre?
Mr. Squirty's Male Strip Lounge.
I'll audition now. What about the Austin Champ? He was never fancied one of those, the old British wartime Jeep.
No, although I wouldn't mind one of those. I like an Austin Champ.
What is it, the Austin Champ?
Yeah, like a sort of very squared off kind of.
It was like the sort of British Jeep.
Looks like it can float. It looks like a little boat on wheels almost. It's very sort of I quite like it. But my dad had the thing about the Willis Jeep purely because when he was a kid he had a toy one. So he just wanted the real thing when he got old enough.
I'd quite fancy one of those. I think they're very bumpy, aren't they? There were suspensions.
Incredible.
But I like that. Tintin has one in Rocket to the Moon.
Yeah.
Doesn't he? Has a bright red one. I thought that'd be quite good. And then people would think I might have a rocket somewhere, and I'd be driving around.
I'm on my way to the rocket.
Yeah, on my way to the moon.
Bezos of Kent.
Yes.
Did you see his rocket? It's very phallic and looks like it's made out of bits of maybe a beetle. I think it might be an old VW.
So does it make deliveries? What does it do?
No.
He's flown off in space.
Has he?
But if you had unlimited funds, is that what you'd do? Go off into space?
That would be the last thing on my mind.
Yeah.
I think of a lot of better things than to say, can you... Right, here's an old VW. Can you turn this into a rocket that's quite phallic? I can think of a lot better things to do with the cash.
Do you mean like an old, like a 79 Golf or something like that, or a Beetle?
The top end is a Beetle, I think.
Yeah.
Do you think people look back and they will look they'll look like the first 18th century people with balloons?
The Montgolfier brothers.
Was that who it was?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a lot. I'd rather do that.
Yeah.
A giant balloon, a giant underwater balloon.
Underwater.
And now here's a better thing. You know, what about a giant underwater city?
Or a floating city, you know. I think it's not
a floating city, underwater city, maybe one that does both.
Yeah. What about a city that's not near water? How about that? It's quite a good idea.
That's a novel idea.
One that doesn't get damp.
Yeah.
And then call it London.
Yeah. I think that'll catch on.
Put a flood barrier in it or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
But
so what's next then? Where are you going to go off to next?
Well, I've not actually played drums live for quite a while now, and so I'm just I'm just having a little think. I think we've all had time for reflection last year and a half.
It's very difficult, isn't it, for musicians, because if you're not playing, it's different from playing at home or in your bedroom or whatever. When you're playing in front of an audience, there's a certain amount more of energy and aggression that is required.
Yep.
And confidence and all that, which only comes from playing lots of live shows. And if you're not doing a lot, it's harder, isn't it, to get back?
Yeah.
You said that from Dave of Chaz and Dave, though, is really enjoying the lockdown.
He is, yes. He likes to keep himself to himself anyway. He lives, I think as Joe Brown once described it, he lives in a clearing. Dave lives in a clearing.
Oh, in the forest.
Yeah. And he just gets on with his own thing and doesn't really like to be bothered too much, and so he's quite happy. And I go and see him like every week and just sit around with guitars and just play a little bit, and that's it, for no other purpose than that.
What,
just
in his clearing?
In the clearing.
I mean, that is also, I think that is him somehow. I mean, what an advanced state for a person to live in. I think the great gurus say that, that you're less you need, the happier you are. And if you're just in the clearing with your guitar, and you presumably bring him some food, and in between that he does a bit of foraging or whatever, that he must be very contented in there, and he's doing his bit of painting and his bit of carving. That's the other thing but people maybe aren't aware of, what an incredible player both your dad and he are, because they're both really great musicians. And one time I was with him on the wings of the Royal Albert Hall, and he had a banjo around his neck, and he was waiting to go on. I think it was either the Lonnie Donegan show, or was it or was it that, or there was a Van Morrison one for Lead Belly. I'm trying to whichever.
I remember.
Anyway, he's there in the wings with this banjo around his neck, and he's chatting to me, and then suddenly he heard himself being announced. And he walked on, and without, it's like 1 minute he's talking to me, the next minute he walks on and plays this blistering banjo, incredibly percussive, syncopated bit of banjo that you'd ever heard in your life, just without, and then just comes off again. It's unbelievable.
In a casual, laissez-faire manner.
Exactly.
And then returns to his clearing.
Returns to his clearing,
That is it.
What could make a man happier?
No, and he has about, 50 different banjos kicking around the house, and, he just like...
A banjo for every season.
Banjo for every season, for every mood. Yeah. Do
you reckon he could take up and do the dueling banjo thing? Go to America and have it? I bet you there's banjo competitions there, isn't there?
There probably is. But the other thing about Dave is he just, every time he plays the banjo, he plays something amazing, and then he'll just stop halfway through and say, I'm out of practice, and put it down. It's like, what? No, you're not. Play that again. So he's got that kind of thing as well, where he's like, no, I'm not sure about that.
And do you do it? You don't play banjo, do you? So you can't do dueling banjos in the clearing room?
No.
It'd be quite a nice idea. I'd like to see that.
That'd be a nice.
I can just back him on the acoustic guitar or something like that.
Presumably, when you are in the clearing with him in the woods, it'll be a bit like if you approach fairies in a clearing. They hear the most beautiful music that you could ever hear in your life, and they'll have their little fire going in at night there, and you just get a bit closer, the lights go out and they vanish. And then you hear it this behind you, and just as you get close to it, it goes like that. There's always something happens. I mean, do you find that?
Have you ever come across that sort of behaviour in the clearing?
It doesn't work like that with Dave. No. I've put that to the test. No. It's there and it stays there. It doesn't.
Yeah.
But he's just him and his little bulldog, and that's all he needs.
That's all you need, isn't it?
Banjo and a bulldog and a clearing.
Yeah.
That's it.
I've always wanted to live in a clearing.
You wanted an underwater city a minute ago.
No, I was just thinking that was a good, more useful for Jeff Bezos to spend his money on an underwater city than a spaceship.
But do you think he'd actually be happy just living in a clearing with a banjo and a bulldog than he would be going to outer space?
I don't know if Jeff will ever be satisfied.
He's looking for that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
He's looking for something. Yeah,
exactly. And if he's out in the universe now, he's never going to find it. So
the future of humankind is at the bottom of the sea. I reckon. If he can do it, if a shopkeeper who flies off to space in a homemade rocket can do it, anyone can. Something
you should put on the Amazon site when it's like, "How are we doing?" Little suggestion thing.
I'll write a postcard to him.
Yeah.
Jeff,
can you go and live underwater, please?
Yeah.
Can you please go and live underwater? Really appreciate it.
When you build your underwater city, what were you going to do about breathing?
Well, it's going to be such a vast dome with
I see, dome.
with maybe a chimney which takes air in from above the sea.
Just popping out underneath the English Channel there, a little chimney. You see,
it's in the English Channel, is it?
Well, it's convenience.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't
plug into the Channel Tunnel, and then you might have an air source through there.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know if I was asleep and saw just a big dome with billions of tons of water above me. I don't know if I'd be able to sleep very well, to be honest.
Yeah, it's going to be fairly thick perspex.
Well, I should hope so.
It's probably easier to get people breathing underwater than it is on Mars.
It's a lot cheaper, a lot easier, and all you got to put up with is me, the new Neptune, and my incredibly outlandish laws.
I could see you as Neptune.
Yeah,
you have your trident and your...
I'll have a trident and a cloak made from fish skins.
And a crown.
Long hair made of seaweed. And a beard made of...
Will you rise from the water laughing?
Yeah, in a giant clam.
Yes.
There's always under the sea. A city under the sea.
There will be.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, it's been a great pleasure having you here with your ideas, sketches and thoughts.
Yeah, let's hope they come to fruition, Jim.
Well, let's hope so. Anyway, thank you so much, Nik Hodges.
Thank you, Nik Hodges.
And thank you, sir. Thank you.
Well, there goes Nick in his Willis Jeep.
Yes, chomping his cigar with his American GI's hat just on the back of his head.
Effing and blinding.
Yes. What a pleasure to have him here it was.
This podcast was produced and edited by Molly Stewart.
Sound engineers were James Stewart and George Latham.
That was another prototype name for Chaz and Dave. They were thinking of band names and they wanted to call themselves Effing and Blinding.
Oh, yeah.
That was actually going to be one of those.
That is a good line.
And that didn't come off for some reason.